Hello, my name is Brenna Ploof. I'm a second year here at the Honors Lone Star College-Kingwood, and today I will be talking about my project, Blood, Sweat, and Silence, High School Football's Unspoken Toll in 1970s Texas. So when we think of sports injuries, we often think of common surgery such as the Tommy John surgery, or maybe the seemingly never-ending list of injured players on our favorite teams. However, injury was very different for a small town in Texas in 1974, where they watched one of their very own players collapse on the field and not get back up. Yet by Monday, they were still decorating for homecoming like nothing ever happened. This drastic difference in the perception for sports injuries led me to my research question. How did high school football culture across Texas during the 1970s and 1980s shape the way players respond to injuries, and in what ways did local media and community expectations reinforce or challenge those responses? So football became the identity for small towns such as Odessa or Phillips. Friday night football games were rituals for these towns. It was much more than just entertainment for them. It was their entire existence. And football brought along town unity. It brought pride and an intense sense of masculinity. So winning would give a sense of accomplishment and worth towards these towns. And this growth in community worth led to the town treating these teenage athletes as these public symbols. While conducting my research, I looked at three main sources. The first is Texas newspapers, such as those from Amarillo, Phillips, Odessa. And these showed community attitudes towards injuries, deaths, and just high school football in general. I also looked at H.G. Bissinger's Friday Night Lights, which is a firsthand experience of the infamous Permian Panthers. This shows the perceived pressure from the town, the way the town had that taken on identity from the football team, and the emphasizing of masculinity. I also looked at Ty Cashin's Pigskin Pulpit, which uses social history to emphasize football as a civil religion, and it looks at the coaches rather than the football players. And I used cultural and discourse analysis with the goal to explain how injury became normalized and what led to the football-crazed communities we see. So because small towns often became unified through football games, it led to a certain ideology that these boys were expected to uphold. Pain was framed as virtue, and because of this, silence was often a way that they felt accepted. It was something they were a part of that was much bigger than just a group of boys playing a game. It was the hearting beat of these towns. An example of this can be found in Friday Night Lights, the book, where a lot of the high school players would purposely play with dislocated shoulders or broken ankles with the purpose of trying to feel like they are worthy of wearing the black and white uniforms of the Permian Panthers. And this toughness was socially rewarded. We can see that through media treating these players as celebrities. Their newspapers had their pictures and names plastered over it, praising their strength. They had signs outside of homes and businesses, and they had their names put on radio shows or live TV broadcasting or interviews. And so an example of this silent method that we see, such as the boys playing through games with serious injuries, can be seen with Gary Treadway from Phillips, Texas. As I said, Gary Treadway was a Phillips High School senior running back that had collapsed during a Friday night game. He died in an Amarillo hospital that Saturday from a blood clot in his brain. However, the doctor said that the injury from the game was actually a week prior, before this game, that he collapsed, and that he was dealing with a lot of headaches and other serious issues for the entire week. And while some of the players and his other peers knew about this injury, they never told the coach. And the coach even said, "He never came to me, so I had no idea." And this kind of shows that that silence makes it to where it can seriously affect these young men. However, there was a bit of a research gap with this. I had an extremely hard time finding anything on Gary Treadway. And in fact, this newspaper clipping up here is one of the very few sources I could find on him. And we can see that the town is mourning through this, where the football players decided they were not going to play the next game in honor of him. However, we also see the town's need for normalcy and ritual, where in the exact same document, they talk about how Friday or Saturday, they're still going to have homecoming, and everything's going to stay the same except for the game not being played. And so deaths and injuries such as Treadway's led to an increase in safety focus but only on equipment, especially the helmets. It never really looked more into the cultural and social demands that these boys had on them. So another really good example is Odessa, Texas from Friday Night Lights. They took on the identity of their football team, as we can see in this quote where it says, "Mojo football, it helps you survive all the sand, the wind, the heat. I wouldn't live any other place." For some people, such as Jim Llewellyn, the only thing that was keeping them in Odessa was their love for the football team, even if they did not have a personal connection to someone that was playing. This, in turn, had put a lot of extreme pressure on both the players and the coaches. An example of this is Gary Gaines, the head coach at the time, would come home to for sale signs in his front yard if Permian lost a game or he made a decision for the football team that the town did not like. And possibly the most well-known example from Odessa is Boobie Miles, which we can see in the top picture where he is sitting on the bench. He had injured his knee during a preseason scrimmage and was not able to play. And because of this, he was looked at as a replaceable pawn that had no real use for the team after his knee injury, which sadly impacted his life long after high school, which we can see in this mugshot on the right from just a few years ago. Injuries such as boobies leaves more than just physical scars. It often mentally and emotionally hurts these young players, especially those who saw football as their only purpose in life. And the media celebrated endurance and perfection from these high school players, and this increased this intense pressure on the players and the staff. As said earlier, football players were not the only ones that were facing extreme pressure. Some coaches had said that their high school coaching careers were some of the most difficult careers they ever dealt with, even including later on college and NFL careers. So football was so much more than just a game for these boys. It was a way for them to learn life lessons outside of sports, which we can see in this quote from Ty Cashin. Almost all of the old-time Texas coaches possessed a firm belief that the game presented their players a microcosm of life's future obstacles. So football was used as a vessel to teach these boys things such as building a tough skin, how to work well in a group, and how to respect authority. And the coaches took on a moral authority. They were the leaders of these boys, and oftentimes the parents and community would put the players' ability to become responsible young men into the hands of the coaches. So if a football player were to question the coach, it was a sign of disloyalty, but not just disloyalty towards the coach or even the team, but towards the entire community. So whether we're looking at smaller, lesser-known towns such as Phillips, or we're looking at more infamous towns such as Odessa, there are common themes throughout. One such is the encouragement and effect of over-the-top masculinity and toughness, such as the walk-it-off mentality, or the tough it out and get over it. Another thing is the glorified sacrifice that players took, and for some of them, the forever lasting effects that it had, as well as peer pressure and the societal pressure that they were feeling. We also see media's role in reinforcing such ideologies onto these young, impressionable boys. So why does this matter? Well, it proves that injury is so much more than just medical. It's fanned by both culture and society. And while the injury may eventually fade, the lasting effects could ruin these young men's lives. It also explains the delayed safety reform and contributes to the masculinity and sports culture scholarly conversation that we still see going on today. And personally, for me, it changed how I saw football communities, especially those in small towns such as Phillips. For future research, I would like to look at how the cultural shift led to the modern medical oversight of football and other sports we see now. I would also like to look past high school and look at college and professional teams such as the NFL. And I would like to look at injury and community expectations in other sports such as hockey or baseball. These are my works cited. Thank you.